Welcome to Build Out with Jim Kunkle. Today's episode is on professional mentoring, and my guest today is CM Nelson, who's a senior technical advisor, corrosion services for TRC Companies. I hope you enjoy our conversation. Welcome to a new episode of Build Out. Today's episode is on professional mentoring. My name is Jim Kunkle, and joining me today is CM Nelson, who's a senior technical advisor, corrosion services with TRC Companies Incorporated. Welcome, CM.
Good to be here, and thanks for having me, Jim.
Hey, CM, for the viewers, if you could do a favor and provide a background on yourself and a little bit of what you do for TRC.
Sure. Reader's Digest version. I've been in and around the pipeline industry and more leaning toward the corrosion side for almost 40 years. Started when I was 10. Spent first few years in the field working for a major pipeline company, and that's where ultimately I got hooked on corrosion. Then I spent a bulk 3.5 decades working for a corrosion manufacturing company, and now I've moved into a new role where I'm with TRC. TRC is simply a massive company that has multiple disciplines, but the group that I'm working with is our Pipeline Integrity Corrosion Services group. They do design, they do field work, they do regulatory. We'll come in and help people with their operating procedures. We get people ready for the mega rule, kind of the whole shebang. In my capacity there, senior technical advisor is a fancy title to say that I do a lot of different things. Work with field groups, work on different projects, and then thankfully we have now reached a point where the straps are coming off and things are starting to head back toward normal, and I get back to my true passion, which is doing teachings and trainings. And I'm real happy to say that I've done 5 in person so far this year and have over a dozen scheduled between now and the end of the year.
Yeah, it's kind of great that everything's starting to open up once again. And we'll get back, as everyone says, get back to normal. But, moving forward, we're going to truly appreciate just being normal. Isn't that kind of weird to think about?
Very. And the reality is I don't know that we're ever going to fully return to a pre-pandemic normal. But that's evolution, and we will adapt, adjust, and improvise, and we'll figure out how to make it work with what we can do.
Well, CM, in the corrosion industry, you're a rock star. And one of the things that many of your friends know about you is that you are very passionate when it comes to young professionals coming into the corrosion and the coatings industries as well. And also, too, when it comes to really help elevate the younger generation, let's say, to attract the younger generation, to elevate them within our corrosion and coatings industries. Professional mentoring is it's very important for everyone to be involved in. And the first topic I'd like to cover with you is professional mentoring and, why mentoring matters. When we look at mentoring, there's really 3 types of mentoring. There's the traditional one-on-one. COVID during the pandemic created the distance, obviously, mentoring, but it's existed prior to the pandemic, but not used as heavily as it has been in the last year and a half. And then a new dynamic called group mentoring. When it comes to the types of mentoring, could you talk a little bit about your background when it comes to, let's say, traditional and then moving into the distance mentoring that you've done over the past number of years?
Sure. The traditional one-on-one mentoring, that was a recipe that companies have used for forever. We go back in the day and, whether it was through a formal apprenticeship or things of that nature, you were basically always preparing for the future. Unfortunately, or fortunately, however you want to view it, we're not going to live forever. At some point in time, Joe, who has been our cornerstone, man, we have relied on Joe. Well, Joe's going to retire. That's just a fact. And when Joe does, we got to have somebody take Joe's place. And again, things have changed, and not necessarily for the better, but, back in the day, you would typically, we're going to have you be Joe's replacement. We're going to take you and put you working with Joe, and Joe's not only going to teach you, but he's going to train you, and he's going to give you the little ins and outs and the nuances. And, this is what the book says, but here's how it really works. And here are the things that I have found. And as you're dealing with different people, be it peers, other operators, vendors, you kind of get taught the tricks of the trade that nobody has written down. Unfortunately, companies have really started getting away from that. They don't do that kind of forward movement. So now what you have is, obviously for any company, back in a former life, you hire on a new employee. Well, certainly there are certain standard operating procedures and there are protocols and things that they have to learn. But then there are the things that you teach them on how to do their job more effectively, more efficiently, how to handle this situation, how to navigate this challenge. And those were all things that, you didn't necessarily have a formal scheduled training. It was on the fly. It was moments of opportunity, as I like to call them, teachable moments. Here's a problem. It came up. Maybe you already handled it. Now we can kind of dissect that, and here's an improvement of how it could have been done, or you hit it spot on, or here's the things you did that don't ever do that again. Then obviously COVID has created the need for distance mentoring for our group. When COVID hit, we went from everybody being in an office and physically seeing each other every day to boom, you're working from home. And if you are a new hire or you're getting put into new roles and you're not exactly positively sure what's the right way to do things, it presents a real challenge. Because I can't just, stick my head in your office and say, hey, Jim, got a minute? I got a quick question. Or let me show you this. Now, I need to get hold of Jim. Let me look on Teams. Well, he's tied up in meetings all morning. And then I'm tied up in meetings all afternoon. And, it just, plus it makes things substantially more impersonal. And to me, the key to any mentoring is you've got to make a connection. I mean, you've got to make that bond. Otherwise, it doesn't effectively work, in my opinion. And then to an extension, the last one, group mentoring, to an extent, it was never my intent, but the training classes that I do, they're very, very customized, and they're customer specific to their challenges, their needs, the experience levels of the people that I'm talking to. I thankfully just completed one last week in West Virginia, and I was very pleased that this particular company, any training that's done, they have all the attendees fill out an anonymous survey, grading the instructor, make comments, and apparently one of the most common comments that was in there was they wish the class had been longer because they just really felt like they were getting a better grasp and a better understanding than watching a PowerPoint or doing an online video or reading a book. So it's about connection and how we have to do it with whatever challenges we're faced with.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And for the past almost 35 years, I've been involved in sales and business development. And I've gone through Sandler training systems. I've gone through a lot of different training when it comes to business development, selling, and things like that. But until I really had, as a younger professional, when I had a mentor, and you never forget these people, Bob McClure, and he showed me really what it meant to be a salesperson. I learned so much from his wisdom and his experience, more than I would learn from, let's say, attending a class or, reading something on, at that time, reading a book or whatever course might be, a physical course that might be offered. Today, everything is so digital. It's instantaneous. It's in your, right in front of you right away. You can learn a lot, but it doesn't really give you that wisdom and experience that a mentor can provide for you.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, mentoring, as you said, it does provide a professional relationship, and it's really focused on supporting the growth and the development of the mentee. Now, as we were talking here, the mentor is that wisdom. They do provide the training and the support for the mentee. And then from that, the mentee can observe, and then they can, obviously integrate what they're learning, what they're observing, but maybe also offer feedback. So I always viewed mentoring as a two-way opportunity for not only the mentee, but the mentor, because, I've been a mentor for younger professionals in the past number of years, and I've learned things from them that are absolutely amazing that I did not know when I was growing up in the 80s and the 90s, let's say, when I was becoming a young professional at that point in time. So you do learn a lot from those people you do mentor.
Oh, absolutely. One of the things that I have found helps make me, I believe, a better teacher, mentor, whatever. We're all guilty of it. Why are you doing this way? Well, it's because it's the way you were taught. It's the way we've always done it. And we can more or less kind of sort of get in a rut in that, if it's not broke, why fix it? And oftentimes, particularly with the years I spent mentoring people through the NACE Workforce Development Program, these are people that are new. So they're coming in with an unbiased, preconceived notion. And oftentimes they would ask questions that were just simply a matter of, I know this is what the book says, or I know this is what I've been taught, but I don't understand why. Or can you explain to me why this? And, that makes you kind of step back for a second, because those were things you automatically were taking for granted. Why are we doing it that way? It's because that's how we do it. You just go on. But them not being scared to ask why or help me understand, it actually makes us better. And from that, occasionally there are times where, sometimes that questioning of why has led to realizing, what, there may actually be a better way to do this. So it's absolutely beneficial in both directions. At least that's been my experience.
So, to go back to the subject matter related to, us coming out of the pandemic, now, in the pre-episode conversation that we had when we were planning this episode, you pointed out to me that really there's a big challenge now that after the pandemic, and you had provided, in fact, I'll put the link into the description, the video description. The Houston Chronicle had published an article in May called "Working from Home May Not Be So Great," and
Right.
You were talking about how they, it really addressed the damage, the companies that was caused because of the loss of interaction between the young professionals and the experienced professionals. Could you talk a little bit about how you feel about how do we address that?
Well, it's an absolute real challenge. And, the bottom line is what makes it so much of a challenge is for mentoring to be successful, it really does have to become a relationship. I mean, you've got to have trust. They've got to feel that they can come to you with questions or problems, asking for guidance, suggestions, whatever the case may be. And, for us as humans, it's just natural. You have to feel comfortable with somebody. You have to have some respect, some trust to kind of open yourself up and be honest. And that becomes exceedingly difficult to do. I mean, I can't even begin to pretend to imagine how difficult this past year has been. My wife and I were talking about it in that, you think of somebody that just graduated from college, in May of 2020, they get a job in a big city that they're not from, Dallas, Houston, Atlanta, Nashville, whatever. So they've packed up, they've moved, and oh wait, you're working remotely from home. So here I am in my 1-bedroom apartment. I don't get to interact with any of my coworkers. Whatever exterior activities I like doing where I get in contact with people, I don't get to go do those. And it really shows how hard it is to grow, because it doesn't even have to be, okay, Jim, I'm going to come into your cubicle or your office and I want to teach you about this. A lot of mentoring just comes about through having conversations, because that's when people are going to start okay, they're going to loosen up and they're going to start talking about the things that they're finding challenging, or maybe they don't know how to do, or they want to do it better, or they're not sure how to go about tackling this. And they just flow into a conversation. And it's really hard to do that when you're not getting in person. And the same way, I know that my son, when he got out of college as an engineer and went to work for a major company, he was very, very fortunate in that there was a gentleman in the group he was working with that had been there almost 40 years. And after a short period of time, because he was seeing him, he was interacting with him, it was on a daily basis. He basically came up to him and said, "Hey, your parents did a good job with you. I mean, you're not like the peers of your generation. You actually care. You want to learn. I'm going to make you an offer. If you're interested, I will start pulling you in on projects with me, and it will gain you more experience and exposure. And if you say, no, I don't want to do it, I don't have any say over your pay or your hiring. But if you want to, I'll start doing that." And thankfully, he was smart enough to say, "Oh, yeah, no, I want to do that." And again, these were all things that were happening in person. They were happening face to face. But that gave him, over a period of 18, 24 months, a crash course to get exposed to things and get to pick up knowledge that might have taken him 5 or 6 years to do in our current climate. So, it's just crucial to, try to find ways. And like any other relationship, it takes work. I don't care if we're meeting in person or not. If you have been assigned as my mentor, well, there's a limit to how much you can spend trying to connect with me. And if I decide this is not that important and I'm not going to respond to you, or I'm not really going to engage, that's not your fault. Likewise, if I, as the mentee, am trying to reach out to you, "Hey, Jim, I'd really like to have a conversation with you," or "I got something I'd like to talk about," and you're never available, after a while, I'm going to quit calling you. So relationship fails. So it takes concerted effort and commitment on both parts to make it work. And even more so when we can't get in face to face as much. You got to get creative. Maybe you do FaceTime, or it's just phone calls, or you figure out a way, especially now. Your company hasn't returned back to being in the office. My company hasn't returned back to being in the office. But maybe we can go grab a lunch, or maybe we can get together on a Saturday and do something. You just have to get creative.
Very good. Very good. So the next topic that I wanted to cover with you is, we were just talking about relationships, talking about mentoring relationships. In researching this episode, I found a 2008 mentoring model from David Cutlerbuck. And in there, he had 5 elements of a mentoring, let's say in the relationship aspects. And what I want to do is get your input and what you, your definitions or what your recommendations are based on each of these steps within the model itself. The first one that he pointed out was rapport building, obviously, building that dialogue. How do you do that, and how do you maintain that?
Well, again, it's communication, and you've got to be, to a degree, transparent. I mean, I'm not saying that we got to take long walks on the beach or anything like that, but it's all about being genuine and real. We've all got it, either through coworkers or acquaintances. There are the people that you can look back and reflect and go, "You know what? That guy's genuine. I mean, he's real. He says what he means what he says, And then at the opposite end of the spectrum, you feel like, that guy should be doing ShamWow commercials because he's just giving me the fluff he wants me to see, and I don't really believe there's anything genuine about him. I don't want that guy to be my mentor. I want a guy that's going to shoot straight with me. I had a situation, and it turned out to be a good relationship. But again, back through the NACE Workforce Development Program, I got contacted a few years back, and they had a young man that had completed the vetting process. Unfortunately, he was wanting to go the CIP route. and they wanted me to be his mentor. And I expressed some concerns in that I'm not a coatings guy. I mean, part of what makes all this work is that you have commonality. You have a mutual interest. And while we are part of the integrity group collectively, coatings and CP are two different animals. I mean, that's just a fact. So I don't really feel that would be the best fit. I was really trying to kind of back out of the deal. And I'll name names. It was Brandy Adams at NACE said, well, he's kind of local to you. Could I get you to just have a talk with him? See what you think. And if you still think it's not a good match, we'll go a different direction. And so we did. We met and we talked, and I was very candid with him. I told him, I said, you're going a path that I only have a peripheral knowledge of. And at the end of the talk, I said, look, at the end of the day, I'm still committed to the program. I've been very candid, been very transparent with you. If you say, I'd really like to have somebody with a coatings background, I'll let NACE know and we'll find you a different mentor. And he literally looked me in the eye and he said, what I look for in a mentor is a straight shooter, sir. And I don't think I'm going to find a more straighter shooter than you. And I said, okay, then let's do it. And we still maintain contact today.
That's great. That's great. And the next step related to mentoring relationships is direction setting. Obviously, this is going to be very critical. What is direction setting when it comes to mentoring?
Well, that's something that is going to be different with every single dynamic. And again, just through personal experience, there were times I was assigned a mentee that their expectation of me as a mentor was, you're going to hire me or you're going to find me a job. No, that's not my role here. I may can point you in some directions and everything else, but you really with direction setting, whatever the case may be, and it's going to be different. Likewise, if I'm the senior design engineer with an engineering firm and you're the new junior engineer, we're actually going to have some goals and some directions for mentoring and developing you, skill sets, timelines, etc. When you're doing it more where you're just trying to help someone in the general overall professional development, the direction setting is to me more a matter of making sure you and I are on the same page. This is what I think I'm bringing to you as a mentor. What are your expectations from me as a mentee? And we may need to do some reshaping and reclarifying of those things. But, like any good plan, you both got to be on the same page. Everybody's got to have the same expectations.
Yeah. Obviously setting the direction, having that game plan. The other thing would be related to metrics. So the next step is progress making. Are you making progress? And how do you lay that out? I guess it would be, how do you track it? What's the metrics involved? Well,
you're talking to an old school guy. So when you talk to me about metrics, I think that we're going to start talking in meters instead of feet. But I realize that is something that people now are into wanting to be able to quantify and document. I'm not that guy. Again, this goes back to, we both got to have a sense of accountability. So when we sat down to start talking about, making sure we're on the same page and the expectations and what we're going to try to achieve, it's important, like anything else, to let's just establish, hey, we're going to try to get together, maybe as simple as saying we're going to try to get together in person once a week or once every 2 weeks or whatever the case may be. And as I am giving you suggestions and guidance on things you should be doing to develop in our industry, you're somebody that's doing the CP1 route, you're located in the Houston area. One of the first things I'm going to tell you is, okay, you need to get plugged in with the Houston NACE section. It's a great opportunity, especially now that we are getting back in person, to be getting involved with people, meeting new people, and we're going to set some of those things. And then, like anything else, we're going to follow up. Hey, Jim, been to the last two NACE meetings and you weren't there. What's up? Hold each other accountable. Or maybe it's vice versa. I told you need to be going. You went to the last three and you're getting with me going, hey, if this is so great, how come I've been 3 times? I haven't seen you. Okay. You hold each other accountable. So every different situation is going to have some different ways to set measurement points, but it is, it's not just, hey, we're just going to hang out and talk and drink a couple of beverages. We're going to set some parameters and set some goals and some things to achieve.
Yeah, definitely. Goals are very critical. And, one of the elements of obviously the relationship when it comes to the mentor and the mentee is what is success look like for that? You're not going to end the relationship, but you need to wind down that mentor-mentee-ship relationship part of it. And then moving on and having professional friendships moving forward. Can you talk a little bit about your experience with some of the professional friendships that you developed after being a mentor?
Oh yeah, no, that's been great. And, like anything else, that there have been some mentoring sessions that have been more successful and rewarding than others. The ones that I was doing through NACE, it's basically a 1-year deal. And I think that any mentoring needs to have a specific timeline window to it as far as how long I'm actually your quote unquote mentor. Now, hopefully at the end of our time together, it is like you said, a bond has been formed, a friendship has been formed, and that is a more casual mentoring that will go on for forever. I tell people in all the classes that I do is that, a smart person doesn't know every answer off the top of their head. They know where to go find the answers. And you do that through networking. And in essence, networking, we're still doing somewhat mentoring. I may not be quote unquote mentoring you, but you're a coatings guy. I'm a CP guy. The fact that we have a relationship, the fact that you think I have some knowledge and you feel comfortable contacting me, there's a good chance that you may have some time in the future where you're working on a project and man, I don't really know what the possible impacts of this type of CP system in proximity to this tank bottom that we're coating or whatever we're doing. I do feel comfortable. I can pick up the phone and call CM and let's have a conversation. And in essence, to a degree, that's mentoring.
Definitely. For our final segment here, our final topic, I want to talk with you about how to become a successful mentor. And you and I, again, in the pre-episode conversations, we had the opportunity to kind of lay this out. The first recommendation, let's say, was to determine that you want to be a mentor. You also want to make sure you have the relevant knowledge and the enthusiasm to share that knowledge, wisdom, and experience. The other thing is to obviously have honest and direct feedback. You want to listen, have empathy, ability, and a willingness to be a mentor. It's a lot of work to be a mentor. It's not an easy task to do. You have to be committed to it. Any other recommendations you have on someone who might be interested in becoming a mentor?
Well, you obviously have to understand the bite you're about to take out of the apple, because it does take time. And it needs to be something that you believe in. I'll say when I got started, when I first got involved doing the NACE mentoring, I was basically voluntold. I got contacted by NACE saying, hey, we understand you want to be a mentor. And I said, who told you that? They said, well, Jeff Didas said that you wanted to do it. Okay, well, I guess I want to do it. I literally picked up the phone. I called Jeff and I was like, dude, what are you doing? You throw me under the bus here. He goes, you mentor every day. That's what you do. And you believe in this industry and you go and you do talks here and there and to, young professionals groups or young high schoolers, and you keep saying this is the greatest industry nobody knows anything about. Well, you got to help build it. Yeah, you do. And so, those were things that were already naturally passions of mine, things that I believe in. And it's true with any volunteer organization. It's only going to be as good as the people who jump in and do something. It's easy to sit on the sidelines and say, hey, you guys ought to, and you really should, and somebody ought to. Okay, well, where are you besides sitting on the couch? And so, I jumped into it. And again, it may sound like I'm oversimplifying things, but it is a relationship. And when you stop and look at it, any relationship you've got, a relationship with your parents, with your children, with your spouse or significant other, with your friends, with your coworkers, it takes effort. There has to be some give and take. There has to be empathy. There has to be genuine caring. And all of those things lead to successful relationships. Well, guess what? They lead to successful mentoring relationships.
As you were voluntold, that for you and I, the second recommendation we had is, choose your mentee carefully, and for myself, the opportunity I've had to be a mentor was being involved in an organization and finding somebody just through conversation and, hey, listen, I can help you out. I know what you're going through. I can help you out. And then developing that mentor-mentee relationship, that is very critical to have that type of a connection with somebody. But again, like, to your point, you could be voluntold. I know in my first, when I was a mentee, again, that person was assigned to me. It worked out great. We had a very long relationship until he passed away and everything. But the amazing thing is you want to make sure that you do, when you engage that mentee, that there is a mutual connection, a mutual interest to work together.
Sure. And, obviously, if you have some say and you can pick and choose, pick wisely. Kind of like the story I gave with the engineer that chose my son. Through your professional organizations, oftentimes you're not going to have that freedom of choice. It's more an assignment. And again, like the example I gave, Brandy Adams trying to get me to mentor a guy that's doing a CIP course. On paper, in my head initially, no, that's not going to work. But it wound up being something I truly enjoy, and I still stay in contact. I just talked to him a month ago, and our official mentoring ended years ago. But there's several of them that, I still maintain contact with them today. And, that also is equally rewarding. But you've got to communicate first, be open, be honest. And, if there are differences in your expectations of our relationship versus mine, we probably ought to kind of get those figured out. Figure out how we're going to get on the same page. And then whatever it is that we say we're going to do it, execute it, which is becoming a more rare commodity in today's world.
Well, you just covered also our third and fourth recommendation. The third recommendation we have is in relationship to engagement, to stay engaged with each other, but also stay engaged within the mentoring process. It might be with an organization, it might be part of a company, a company program, and it might just be out of just professional relationship that you have maybe with a young professional and things like that. And then the other thing is the mentor and mentee accountability. We talked about the relationship. You want to make sure that it's not one-sided, and that you clearly define what success looks like, because you're probably never going to be a mentor-mentee relationship for your whole lives. There has to come a conclusion at some time. And then the final recommendation that you and I have is to create a professional development plan, obviously, with the metrics, the measurements, and things like that. So those are very, very, very critical.
Yeah, because, unfortunately, there have been some mentoring assignments I've had that didn't work out well. either because, like I said, their expectation was, well, you're my mentor, you're going to hire me, or you're going to find me a job. Okay, this is not going to work out well. Then there's also been some cases, unfortunately, where, okay, we've laid out the scope of what we're trying to accomplish, and I've given you the things that you need to be doing. And a month passes, 2 months, 4 months, 6 months. Have you done any of those things? No. Why not? Well, you have a ton of excuses, but you didn't have anything done. Okay, unfortunately, to me, that shows me you're not that committed. And if you're not that committed, then it sounds harsh, but I'm losing respect for you. And one of the keys to being a successful mentoring relationship is respect. If you're not going to put the time and effort and energy in, then we're sliding back toward that one-sided deal. I'm not putting you on my back and fireman carrying you all the way to the pinnacle of your career. I'm just here to help guide you, keep you from running off into the ditch, maybe give you some insights into how to make things better, smoother, faster, more efficient, easier. But I'm not carrying you to the top of the hill. I help you, not take care of you. So yeah, all of those things come into play. But again, it oversimplifying, just keeping it like any successful relationship, and the communication that has made it harder in this last year. We're all guilty of it. There is somebody in your life, maybe a childhood friend, college friend, whatever. Y'all used to be tight. You were thick. Where are they now? Well, you don't know. Why not? Well, we fell out of communication. Right. And it sounds harsh, but at some point in time, one or both of you decided it wasn't worth the work to maintain the communications channel. In a successful mentoring scenario, both sides have to make that commitment to the keeping the communication, which has been more challenging in the last 12 to 15 months.
Most definitely. Sam, what an awesome conversation we've had in this episode. In closing out, is there anything that we did not talk about that you would want to leave with the viewers?
Only that if you, mainly from the side of those who have been in the industry for a while, there is a tremendous need to mentor and teach the young people coming along. Our industry specifically has a substantial age gap, and the median age is up in the 50s. And we need to be getting young people in. We need to be getting them plugged in. And whether you're going to take on a one-on-one individual responsibility or you're just trying to work for the greater good, whatever part of the country you're in, NACE, and I know I keep saying it's AMPS, but old habits die hard. But there are sections all over the country. And maybe you don't live in Houston. Maybe you live in Bernie. Well, guess what? There's a San Antonio NACE section. They're looking for people to engage. Maybe you might be the person that comes in and creates the spark whereby, I'll put a plug in, the NACE Arizona section prior to the pandemic. They were actually engaging with the public school systems, science departments in the state of Arizona to try to raise awareness about corrosion, cathodic protection, all of that. Because at some point in time, we've got to capture the imagination of some of these young people as this is a viable industry to pursue. This is a path I want to follow. Everybody knows about lawyers and doctors and bankers and accountants, but I keep saying it, we're the greatest industry nobody knows anything about. And so maybe you're not going to go take on an individual mentorship, but can you work with that section? Can you help in that section? Can you maybe help take that section in a new direction to help engage young people? And then for those that are in the workforce that are in the industry, when new people come along, think back. It may have been a few decades ago, but what was it like when you were young? I know that for me personally, two gentlemen that neither one of them are with us anymore, but John Salmonson and Fred Pettis, they were the corrosion guys. They were the guys who took an interest in me. And I was smart enough to appreciate the knowledge they were pouring out to me. Well, that's kind of why I feel the way I do now, is that because somebody took interest in me, because somebody imparted knowledge and wisdom to me, it's kind of incumbent upon me that I need to do the same, because we've still got new young people coming along. So I would suggest that people give some serious thought to how they can do that, either in a professional way, a specific, defined way, or if it's just, hey, we just hired Skipper and, I need to start checking in on him, and I'm going to go do some work this week that it'd probably be good if he saw it. Maybe I ought to call him and ask him if he wants to come help me this week. You're not officially a mentor, but you're exactly mentoring.
If you'd like to get in contact with CM, I will have his email address on the screen here. Also in the video description, I'll have his email address that you could reach out to CM. CM, thank you so much for this opportunity. This has been a great conversation.
Jim, I've enjoyed it, and thanks for having me. And maybe we can do this again sometime in the future.
Definitely. It's a lot more to unpack from just what we talked about on this episode. CM, have a great day.
You do the same. Thanks.